Hello, everyone, and welcome to Financial First Aid. At Financial First Aid, we help bankrupt entrepreneurs go from broke to bank. We show them that bankruptcy is not an end, but a beginning with a fresh start. We motivate, educate, and inspire the entrepreneur in you. And today, I have the pleasure of having Mr. Christian LeFleur. He is the founder of Instant Nonprofit. It is a organization that helps people begin nonprofits. A little background about him. A decade ago or so, he volunteered to start a nonprofit with some friends. He figured, how hard could it be? Then he became morally outraged at the brain-numbing application process, the 1 year plus approval timeline, and the attorney's fees. When he didn't hear back from his assigned agent, which was assigned to him by the government, he dialed 30 plus similar extensions, changing the last numbers, until he came to an IRS person that could actually help him. Grilling agents and formulating a love letter to a bureaucrat, he was able to get through to someone that could actually help him. The perfect 501c3 application he wanted to submit so that he wouldn't keep having this stalled and prolonged process. He finally got an approval in under 60 days and went from blogger to businessman. Today, he has an efficient tech-enabled process, 100% IRS approval guarantee, and a staff who believes it shouldn't be hard to do good. They're the first and easy and number one most highly rated 501c3 service in this niche. Welcome today, Christian. Thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Thank you. That was quite an introduction. Thank you so much, Vera, and I am excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here because so many times people never think of nonprofits as an entrepreneurial enterprise, but it most certainly is. And, this podcast is directed at not only bankrupt entrepreneurs, but all entrepreneurs. And this is a very good avenue to use in the event that you have, some type of, desire or dream or ambition to really help the world. So what is the name of your nonprofit again? I want you to tell them.
We are not a nonprofit. We have a nonprofit. We are a for-profit company that helps enable people to go from idea to IRS approved tax exempt status with very, very little work, under 30 hours in most cases, 30 minutes in most cases. The IRS says it's about 30 hours at about a third of the cost of an attorney, and you never even see a government application or speak with a government agent. And so if you were to go to instantnonprofit.com, that is what you would find.
Wow, fantastic. And who would be, some people that would be, your ideal listeners, your ideal, clients?
I think about when I think about our ideal client, because I'm asked this on podcasts a lot, and we want to serve people who are disenfranchised, right, by the bureaucratic process. Now, that could be someone who's quite capable and has lots of money, right, and is maybe shifting into a social type of venture. They're just as disenfranchised as other people. The difference is people in the lower socioeconomic, rungs do not have, can't just pay somebody else to do it. Now, we do better than, attorneys. Attorneys don't do this all the time. Even the ones that say they do nonprofit work, they're going to stick your 501c3 in between a real estate deal and a divorce in most cases. And since this is all we do, we really know the processes at all 50 state agencies, because we do all 50 states every day. And also we know the IRS inside and out, because there are little changes that go on inside all these agencies that change policy sometimes. I'll give you a great example. Washington State, at the beginning of the year, took a step way backward in the world and decided they're not going to do online nonprofit applications anymore. You have to mail them. 2 years ago, California stopped taking electronic signature. I mean, you can buy a house with an electronic signature. Why can you not? Why? And you can form every other type of nonprofit in all these different states, but you never know what these agencies are up to. We take all that pain away and make it super smooth, because the number one mission of our company is to help people stay focused on their mission. So when I think of my ideal client, I just fall in love with people when I talk to them. And I've done over 5,000 strategy sessions for people considering starting a nonprofit. And I'll think of, and I cannot remember his name, and I probably wouldn't use the real name anyway, but Lamont from Washington, D.C. I'll never forget him. And I probably could look up his name. I could probably call him right now. About 7 years ago, when we were just getting ramped up, he called and said, hey, I want to start a nonprofit. I drive a trash truck. I want to take money out of my paycheck because I'm helping these kids. I'm mentoring. I'm giving them a place to come after school. And I want to help them stop getting shot up in my neighborhood and, pregnant and on drugs and all this stuff. And whatever it takes, that's what I want to do. And he goes, this touched my heart so much. He goes, I watched all your videos and I did everything that you said. And now I've got the name and I know the mission and I want to get started. And I want you to help me with it. And I never forgot about him because he was only able to do our payment plan and couldn't, he was just literally shelling money out of his pocket. And we never want to stop serving people like that. That's why we have packages from $1,000 all in, all the way up to $6,000 plus, depending on how much rolling up the sleeves and done for you work somebody wants done. But even at the very lowest end, at the very minimal end of that, spectrum of cost, what we deliver is an absolutely done for you service, because we don't think that the people at any end of that spectrum should get anything but the absolute best quality, best service, and the most heart, because they're doing something super important in their world.
Nice. I like your catchphrase, which is it shouldn't be hard to do good.
It shouldn't.
I like that. I really do. So what kind of got you started in this? I put a little bit of that in the intro, but give us a little bit more background on how you really got started on this.
Well, if you're familiar with the sort of hero's journey model, right? Every human has this hero inside them that they don't really know about. They don't know about the hero's journey often. But, when I was 8 years old, I was outside playing with my friends. I grew up in New Jersey, lower middle class, and my mom was a single mom working, and I had a little sister, and she wasn't able to talk really well by the time she was about 3.5 years old. So just before she turned 4, my mom took her to the doctor because she's not Downs. Nobody, there's nothing that appears physically different or anything about Monique. But when she took her to the doctor, what they told her was that she was developmentally disabled, what we called back in 1973, and I'm dating myself, but mentally retarded. Wouldn't ever speak like the other kids or do things like the other kids. She was special. But to me, I didn't have any other sisters to compare her to, and I wouldn't have anyway. I was like, that's fine, Mom. I love my sister, and I went back out to play. So that's kind of that origin story, because I grew up around Special Olympics. I grew up around all these nonprofits. Well, fast forward to me in around 2010, I went to volunteer and start a nonprofit with some friends. And I said, I'll take the application. Like you said, how hard can this be? And boy, I was so outraged that it's really easy to start a used car lot. No offense to used car lot founders. It shouldn't be 100 times harder to start a nonprofit and do good for people. And so I remembered back to my sister and growing up around all these wonderful people that served through Special Olympics and all the other nonprofits that helped her. And still to this day, my little sister is, now she's 48 years old. She's putting together things in boxes. She has a job. She works for a wonderful nonprofit. They help get her the services she needs. And she is my favorite human on the planet, because if you throw the ball back to Monique, she's your best friend for life. But I never forgot all those organizations that worked with Monique. And I said about making sure that the bureaucratic barriers to doing this would never get in anybody else's way if they could possibly hear about us, so that they could go focus on their mission.
Wow. That is so nice. So what are the 5 stages of the nonprofit life cycle?
So the 5 stages of the nonprofit life cycle are seed, and that's mostly what the founder brings. That's mostly what grows in people's hearts, sometimes for years before they get around to actually starting the nonprofit. So there's seed, Then there's startup. That's kind of forming the entity, doing the filings. That's where we step in, put some structure around this thing, get it legal and get it up and running properly. In the middle, you've got systemized. You want to put some basic systems in place so that the organization doesn't crush you, because you're trying to do something good, but you can't ruin your own life in the process. A lot of people that start nonprofits have a job where they have other obligations that they're starting out with. So you want to put some basic systems in place. We also help with that. The next step 4 is scale. That's where you've got some of these basic systems. And what you want to do is be able to ramp those up. You want to start a fundraising in a more organized way. You want to start recruiting volunteers and growing the staff, again, so that it doesn't all fall on you as a founder. And then stage 5 is sustainability. You want to make sure that you're not going to suffer from founder syndrome, where, you don't want it to be no Jane Goodall, no apes, right? You want to be able to have leadership that you're cultivating in your organization, so that when you get on in years or you have another call to your life, that organization can stay in place and continue to help people.
Right. That's wonderful. So if you were a for-profit company, what would be some of the advantages of starting a nonprofit if you're a for-profit company?
Sure. I would say there are 3 scenarios where people want to start a nonprofit in relation to what they're doing now. What we're finding more and more as people who are successful entrepreneurs, or even people who are today with millennials, especially, and the younger generations, from the day they start their company, they want to do good with the money that they make. They have a social mission that underlies why they're doing what they're doing. So a lot of times we will start a nonprofit right alongside either a very well-established for-profit or a brand new for-profit, and they can work synergistically. And I'll give you an example. We recently had a pretty big corporation that makes herbal and health supplies from essential oils come to us, and they said, we want to use some of the money. We've done well. We want to educate people on how they can take any company, right? Because this has to be a public benefit for the nonprofit. We want to train people on how to decide what things they can treat with oils and herbs and things like that, and just give that to the public. And if they do business with us, that's great. If they do business elsewhere, that's great. So you can see the synergy there and how that would be a public benefit, meaning it's eligible for 501c3 nonprofit status. The other scenario you might see is that somebody is in a career change. They're leaving their current business is having trouble. They're leaving their current business and they're pivoting into a new business. Well, a nonprofit's a business too. It's just that if you can establish that your purpose is something that the IRS will consider to be what's called an exempt purpose, then it is eligible for 501c3. Well, what does that mean? You have no corporate tax. You're eligible. You're automatically no corporate tax. You can get to where you follow the corporate tax exempt status. The federal tax exempt status with state tax exempt status, and all of your employees are exempt from federal unemployment tax out of their payroll. Other than that, payroll is pretty similar. But people are coming to us now, and they're entrepreneurs. It's a social venture, and they're starting a nonprofit just like any other business. It's just that they're eligible for 501c3 tax exempt status. And then the third scenario is they're not switching careers. It's not that they haven't had another line of work, but what they're doing is maybe they are a therapist, or maybe they have worked, they've volunteered for foster care or what have you. And they say, I'm burdened by this thing because right now I have kids at my house every afternoon, and we do some lessons, or I'm helping these people in a certain way, or I'm giving rides and I'm organizing people in my neighborhood to give the elderly folks in my neighborhood rides to the doctor. Okay. I just can't afford the financial burden anymore. I need an entity into which to raise money so that we can continue to do this. Otherwise, I'm out. Okay. And that's probably the 3 scenarios.
And what would be the things that would enable someone to qualify for a nonprofit? What are the things that the IRS is looking for you to be able to say, I'm a nonprofit?
Sure. Most broadly, those would be things that are educational, scientific, religious, or community oriented to bring community togetherness, environmental, animal, and overall wellness. So if you are a health clinic, therapist, we are doing innovative nonprofits that are using technology to pull plastic out of the oceans. I mean, all kinds of incredible things. And some of these are actually switching from a for-profit to a nonprofit because they do fit one of these generally 7 areas of nonprofit tax exempt eligibility.
So, and how did you find the way to, how is it that, if you go to someone who doesn't do this full time, and as opposed to coming to your company, which does it full time, how is it you've managed? You don't have to give us all your secrets, but how is it you managed to be able to do it within 30 minutes or an hour or whatever, as opposed to some of these other people who take not just hours but years sometimes to do it?
Well, I just last week had someone walk me through one of our competitors' online platforms. And what I noticed was that they have, hey, he offered, I accepted because I wanted to see what people have to experience. I already know what the government forms look like. And what they did was they took the government questions and they put them on an online form.
Okay.
And sometimes that doesn't help because when you ask, for example, the general question, describe your activities. Well, who knows what that means? That could mean you could write a novel, you could write one sentence, or you could write something in between. So we ask very specific questions that boil it down to English. And also what we do is, as you can imagine, how many of us have gone to fill out a form and we're writing our name in 3 different spots on that set of forms.
Yes.
And then we're having to turn in this paper and then wait and have it go through a process. There are 26 different discrete steps in the process of starting a nonprofit. What we've done is we collect all the information up front at the beginning. We then feed that back to you in step 1. It's basically a 3-step process with a power of attorney. And we make sure that there are no typos in the last names and that this is what your board wants is made up of. This is how your board works. So right in the form, we give you that 1-sentence mission statement that you then have in your pocket for the rest of your life. We help you. If you are struggling with a name, we have a process for that. We have a process for all these things. So we can get that information one time upfront at the beginning, get it approved and verified, and then we do all the work for you through steps 2 and 3 while you go, again, focus on your mission. And so that's what allows us to do this so quickly and efficiently, because then if the IRS leaves us on hold for what I think is our new record of 172 minutes last week, at which time they terminated the phone call with a recording that they were doing us a favor because the wait time was so much longer than that. So this is the kind of thing that we shield people from, because while we're on hold, our paralegals and we just hired an ex-IRS agent. We have law firm partners. We have people who do this stuff all day. And when our paralegals are on hold with the IRS, they're producing and they're working on files while they're waiting on those ridiculous hold times. But if you and I go to do that, guess what we're doing? Because if that person comes on and you're not ready, they're going to hang up in a second.
Yes, they will. I know that because I've experienced it. Oh, so going forward right now in this time of kind of craziness with the pandemic and whatnot, what would you say to a new entrepreneur or startup entrepreneur in terms of using or getting into the nonprofit space? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, the number one thing I would say, and I find this, especially in this business, is that many people who are nonprofit founders, some are very business savvy, some are not, but many are empaths. Many are people who have a lot of heart. They put a lot of their life into these things. And so the number one thing I would say would be to be kind to yourself. Yes, it's important for you to see that you're being relied on to help other people. And I think that's so wonderful. And I honor and affirm everyone who feels that way. But so many times I see people at the, get stretched, or they're at the brink of burnout because they're so busy helping other people, they don't put that oxygen mask on themselves. And I went through a personal crisis several years back and a true transformation because I was so burnt out, and I didn't realize that I had some limiting beliefs and some things from my childhood that didn't allow me to show up as fully as I can now. And so everything kind of burned in my life, and I went through quite a bit of hardship. And I came to this realization I needed to learn to love myself and take care of myself first so that I could serve people at a higher level than ever. So especially for empaths, people who have a lot of heart that want to do good in the world, it's take care of yourself first and make sure that you're able to continue this journey for the long haul. Number two, I would say make a list of what your strengths are and try to stay focused in those areas, and then outsource the things that are able to be done by someone else. And that isn't just self-serving for people to come to us as customers, although I do think that's their best bet. But even with things like, I don't know if you've heard of Upwork or Fiverr.com, it is incredible that you can take someone. I have a Filipino virtual assistant right now. I love this kid, I call him, he's probably in his 20s, but to me, he's a kid. When I interviewed him, he said he wanted to go through personal growth and learn to overcome his fears. And he said he cried when he had to speak publicly, and that he did it anyway. And that's why I hired him, because I knew he would have that perseverance to get through things. And we have been able to watch him grow. And so the point is, we are able to pay a handful of dollars compared to what we would have to in the US to get some very important things done. And it's giving his family and himself a path forward in this life. And so it's incredible the amount of things that you can outsource to other people to maintain your donor database, or, and maybe that's sensitive info. So whatever isn't sensitive, or you just enter into a contract and you grow to trust people after a while. But you don't have to do all of the work. You can outsource the things that are not your strength, because chances are, if you're starting a nonprofit, you want to talk to people. You want to explain that these services exist to both people who can donate to you and also find people in the need of these services. If you're helping the homeless, you got to get out in the street, because they're not surfing the internet looking for you. They're in need right where they are. So that would be the two things I would suggest to anyone first to do.
Great. And so kind of what got you started on this entrepreneurial path? Because now you're an entrepreneur, really.
Yeah, I kind of backed into this one by, doing this nonprofit. And I was in a world before where I was doing communications, but I no longer found that job fulfilling. Okay. And when I thought about solving this problem, it just became very clear to me. But what I didn't know was how to go about doing all the different things. And I'll give you an example. When I talk about outsourcing certain things and then the things that I should be doing, I hired a bookkeeper and a finance person. And what I did was I didn't learn the basics, the fundamentals of the books. And only much later on, when I really went to look into those and go, okay, what's this business about? Why are we growing, but I'm still having trouble paying the bills? And I started to look at the book so I could make financial decisions instead of just file taxes, which is what most bookkeepers and accountants do, is they pay attention to taxes. They don't turn it into a business making tool or a decision making tool. And so I had to go and learn the hard way and teach myself how to do the books. Now, my books are so beautiful today, they belong in the Smithsonian. And it was only through a lot of work that I got things into the right categories and did all that stuff. And so that is what turned me really into a CEO versus more amateur business owner. Gotcha. I think that was really key, because now I understand that's the lifeblood of the business. Of course, I get on podcasts, I write, I do a lot of the writing, I kind of determine a lot of the direction for the company. But it's really important that you know the fundamental systems on which your business is going to rely.
Excellent. Excellent. That's great advice. So on my podcast, at the end of my podcast, there's two things I always do. I ask my guests how they can inspire, educate, and motivate my audience. And I also ask them for their contact information so I can help spread your message throughout the world to my listeners, and hopefully they spread it to somebody else. So let's start with the first one. Give me something that would educate my listeners.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I just want people to know that if you have had, we have people call us who had trouble with the IRS. They're in a payment plan on taxes. They've been bankrupt. We've had people coming out of prison who are uniquely qualified to help others who are doing the same say, hey, can I start a nonprofit, or is this going to keep me from doing that? And the number one thing I would say is that nothing you've done or even anything you're involved in right now takes away your rights to serve on the board of a nonprofit and to help run a nonprofit. So that's something that we get asked all the time. And so that's one thing I'd like to say. The other thing is you can get started and grow your way into this. So you can start something part-time. You can just start going out and serving a need. And once you do that, I like to talk about inputs, not outcomes, because we can't control the outcomes and we get super stressed if we try to, but we can sure control the inputs.
Right.
So if you put in that positive effort and you are willing to learn along the way, then you can find a way to pay for this. You can find a way to really help people. And it's so affirming when you just get that first person who you've helped, or that first, fund the meal drive for the homeless or whatever it is. That's super rewarding. So, it's about going for that quick win. And that's where we also try to help our customers. I just shot today a seed fundraising course. It's included in our annual maintenance program, which is only $37 a month to maintain your nonprofit once you start it. Excellent. And I taught people the same tactics and gave them the same tools that I've used to raise millions. Maybe you only want to raise 10,000 or 50,000, but the steps are simple. And you, whoever is listening, already possess every single skill that you need. You are a whole, healthy, complete human being who possesses all the skills to do these things. It's just our path to show you some of the tools, put the steps in order, and be those guides and angels that come alongside of you in your hero's journey to help you along.
Wow. I think you did motivate and inspire all at the same time, along with the educate piece. Yes, indeed. I love the part where you say you have everything. You're a whole person. You can do it all. And that's what people really, really need to hear, to motivate them and inspire them to, hey, this is my mission, move forward with it. That's wonderful. But I'll get more specific and say, what would you say to motivate them?
What do I say to motivate them?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the nonprofit sector, as far as if they're thinking about anything like this, the nonprofit sector has over $4.3 trillion in assets.
Wow.
Private corporations, private companies owned by people like you and me and individuals give over $250 billion away every year. There is more than enough money to feed every mouth and fulfill every cause, including yours. So while you may not know the path and you may not know exactly how to connect that should be motivating to anyone, because especially with the pandemic, people are reassessing their values and they're going, well, do I want to die with all this money in the bank? Are they going to regret that money in the bank when they're looking back on their life? Or are they going to regret giving it to you and funding a cause that bent the arc of history and changed somebody's life? I think if you compare that, you're going to find that there is A, plenty of money, and B, plenty of reason for you to be the one to go out and take that puzzle piece that is your nonprofit and try to fit it to the heart of some people, and you're going to find it click someplace, and then you're going to give them a bigger life. You're not taking anything away from them by fundraising. You're actually giving to them. It's a beautiful relationship, and I really find that motivating myself. And I just got off an hour training talking about exactly that.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's a lot of motivation right there. Letting people understand and know that, whatever their mission is, as long as it's putting some good into the world and helping someone, that should be motivation enough for you to start your nonprofit. Wonderful. I love it. So, Chris, how can people get in touch with you?
They can go to instantnonprofit.com. And in fact, if they want a free gift, they want a free strategy session, whatever, they can go to instantnonprofit.com/financial first aid, all one word, all spelled out, financial first aid, and they can get a gift or a free strategy session, because we've set up a link just for your show so that people can easily go get a gift, figure out how to get started, or figure out where they fit in this hero's journey. And then when they're ready to take action, they can have a free strategy call and we can just figure out what's the best path for them.
I think I might be the first one to sign up.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for your time and your energy that you bring and all the good that you're doing in the world, Chris. I really love it. It's inspiring to just hear how, your little idea, whatever your little idea is, can be, mushroom into something so great that it really impacts the world.
Thank you so much. I've figured out a lot of the wrong way to do things, and I hope that my pain is your gain.
I love it. I love it. Thanks again. I'll talk to you again soon, I hope.
All right. Take care. I can't wait. See you, Vera.
Bye-bye.